Yeah. I went when I was little. I went with kind of a crazy aunt of mine, but I had a great time. I remember just it was like 95 degrees. It was in Disney, and just being very, very hot, sitting in these big crowds of people watching these huge fish jump in and out of the water. It was really fascinating to see these trainers handle these massive killer whales, dolphins, and see them do all these flips. And my favorite part was when this huge, huge killer whale just jumped up and splashed the entire crowd, and kind of felt nice after that. So today I'm going to talk about SeaWorld. Specifically, I'm going to talk about how they captured their killer whales, or orca, the effects it has on the orca, and also the effects this has on humans in general. So to start off, they started capturing these killer whales in the 1970s. They would drop bombs and flares in the water and kind of lead them into channels and canals, and then use nets to trap all of them in there. And they pick out the young, small ones because they're easier to transport and easier to train. But a lot of people don't understand how intelligent these species really are. I mean, they have a brain very similar to humans, but in addition to a human's brain, they have more of emotional connections with each other. Scientists have studied their brains and said that they have a spin-off of the part of the brain that experiences emotions. So they're really close together. They can communicate with each other. Actually, after a mom gives birth to a whale, that whale will stay up with that mom all the way until she dies. So they kind of go around in different pods, and every pod has different language, different culture, different attitudes, and everything like that. So just keep that in mind. So they started capturing some of these whales in Washington, and then they, after they got banned in 1976, they moved on to Greenland and different places all over the world. So after capture them, they would have them in the nets and they bring them into shore and where they transport them. And instead of all these different orcas running away and running away because they're scared of getting captured, they would follow the nets in, high-pitched screeches. And one of the guys kind of described it as if he was a kidnapper taking a child from the parents, and the parents couldn't do anything about it. So it was just a really powerful thing to see. So after that, they would take these orcas and they transport them all over the country, San Diego, Florida, Canada, everywhere. And they wouldn't just keep them with the pods that they're with, the ones that they communicate with and everything like that. They would throw in ones from Greenland and Washington and put them together. So they didn't always get together. They didn't really experience the same feelings that they had when they were in the wild. They didn't speak the same language, as weird as that sounds. They didn't have the same personalities at all, and they were kind of like abandoned from their families. Which leads on to my second point, the effects that this has on the orcas. They are thrown into these tanks and trained by these different trainers that will teach them tricks, and after they do tricks, they'll get fish. So they're kind of prone to do these tricks because they want more fish and they want to eat more and everything like that. And then overnight, when there's not a crowd there, they're thrown into these big concrete tanks. It's not like they can swim for hundreds of thousands of miles like they can in the wild. They're in a specific concrete area, alone with the lights off, and trapped with one or two other orcas that they don't really get along with. I know one specific case that they really focused on, there's just one whale called Tilikum who was in Disney. He was a massive whale. He would come out at the end and splash the entire crowd. But he really got tortured by the other whales because he wasn't as obedient as the other ones were, so they wouldn't get as many fish after they're performing. So the other fish at night would go and beat up on him, and he would go through mental breakdowns, and they said that it got to a point where he started attacking the trainers, and they kind of swept it underneath the carpet, SeaWorld did, and blamed it on the trainers and everything like that. But in the footage seen on Blackfish, the trainers said that it was not the trainers' fault, it was 100% the whale's fault. So that kind of leads me on to this question. Could anyone tell me how long a typical killer whale lives in the wild? No. It's about the same as a human. It's about 70 to 100 years. Whereas in SeaWorld, they live to about 20 or 30 years. And you could see footage from a SeaWorld trainer, or not a SeaWorld trainer, but a SeaWorld tour guide saying to the people that they're giving tours to that these animals are given more life than they are in the wild because they get so much good treatment and everything like that. But people are just missing the huge point of really what's going on. They go crazy. It's like, one of the guys said, it's basically like being trapped in a bathtub for about 30 years with no one to talk to. I mean, you're going to start to break down and lose your mind, which leads me on to the effects on humans. I mean, in the wild, there have been zero accounts or zero written down accounts of orcas or killer whales attacking humans because humans kind of let them do their own thing. They don't bother them. They just leave them alone. Whereas at SeaWorld, there's around 75 to 80 accounts of injuries and deaths that have taken place over the last 20 years. And like I said before, every single time this happens, SeaWorld blames it on the trainer and not on the whale. But if there's clear signs, clear aggressive signs of a whale's aggression towards humans, one in particular was, there's a story of a drunk guy that found his way stumbling through SeaWorld and fell into one of the tanks with that killer whale named Telecom. And in the morning when the security guards got back and everyone came back, they found this guy in Telecom's mouth, like as she was jumping up and down out of the water. This guy completely destroyed. He was scalped to the bone. His genitals ripped off. And the whale was kind of going around and parading around, like, look at what I did. So, I mean, in general, these are very peaceful, smart, emotional creatures that aren't meant for humans to abduct them and put them into a concrete pool and kind of have them make a circus for everyone. They're meant to just be left alone and left in the wild and kind of just let them do their own thing. So my overall goal was so that you guys kind of understand what goes on there. Just raise awareness, I mean, how they're captured, the effects SeaWorld has on these whales, and the effects it has on humans, human trainers as well. So if anyone has any questions, we'll keep loving to take them. Also make sure that you watch, if you haven't seen this, make sure that you watch Blackfish on Netflix. It's really an awesome documentary. And it kind of goes into a lot more depth of what I said. And you'll see the trainers talking about it, you'll see scientists talking about it, and you'll see the different whales I was talking about featured in this show, or in this documentary. So, questions? Yes?
What have